Let's maul in the Central Committee. Let's cringe in the Central Committee. Let's bog in the Central Committee right now.
Chad, this is an incredible opportunity. We got Juan Martinez, Eric Rorholm, and oh wait, let me just cover this title up. Ryan Clancy. Why don't you guys just explain who you are, what offices you're running for, what your views are, and then we will get into a larger discussion about, local politics. So why don't we start with Ryan. Ryan, who are you? What are you running for? And what do you stand for?
Mike, thanks so much. My name is Ryan Clancy. I'm actually an incumbent. I'm the first open socialist elected here in Milwaukee since 1956. Mm-hmm. And what I'm running for is just to keep doing what I've been doing. We successfully got the right to counsel passed for folks facing eviction and foreclosure, the right to shelter. I've been trying my best to defund the police here in Milwaukee with limited success my first year, a little bit more, $2.4 million this most recent one. And we're on our way. And I am so excited to support these two because we need a socialist caucus on the Milwaukee County Board. Because I can only drag my colleagues so far left. At some point, we need to replace them.
All right. And what district are you running for re-election in, Ryan?
I'm in District 4 with redistricting. It's now Bayview and a little area near the airport as well.
All right. Eric, you're next.
Hey, thanks so much, Mike, for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is Eric Rorholm. I'm 23 years old. I just graduated from Marquette University. I'm running here in the new District 3, which is a really incredible district. It includes downtown. It includes the Lower East Side, Upper East Side, Walker's Point, which are known as areas that are really huge with young people, very progressive. I've heard the word bohemian described.
Bohemian.
I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's a real staple of Milwaukee culture. And this is a district that's marked by very, very severe wealth inequality. We have millionaires and a few billionaires actually that live along the lake, and only blocks. And only blocks to the west, you'll have tenants living in substandard housing. It's really ridiculous. There are a few reasons I decided to run for this race. I was proud to march in the streets of Milwaukee in the summer of 2020 in the Black Lives Matter movement. And anyone who was marching knows that the sheriffs in Milwaukee County went absolutely above and beyond to terrify, to hurt, to tear gas, to beat. There was so much waste. Of course, right? And which was so sickening, not only because we're supposedly in such a budget crunch, right? There's always money for weapons of war, but just because of the sheer insidiousness of it, of feeling like you can declare war on your own people for saying that Black Lives Matter, On top of that, the climate crisis is real. It's here. This district contains a lot of shoreline. It contains our beloved Bradford Beach, which people love the Milwaukee County Park System. It was the sewer socialists that gave us our amazing park system. And unfortunately, it is the capitalist class who has allowed it to fall into such severe disrepair, right? And actually, the man I'm running to challenge, he's a millionaire, he's a landlord. He tried to ban Pokemon Go in Pokemon Go summer because so many people were drawn to our beautiful parks, and that bothered him. And so this is really indicative of the mindset of this millionaire that has been unopposed actually in this position since 2016, and that's really not right. This is a seat that working people deserve to control. This is a seat students deserve to control. There's 3 colleges and universities in this district alone. So it's been a really amazing race so far, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you today.
All right, Juan, last but not least, if you give me your district and a little bit of your biography and why you're running.
Of course, yeah. Thank you very much for having me as well. So my name is Juan Miguel Martinez. I'm running in county district for county district supervisor of 12th district, which encompasses primarily a really big chunk of the south side when the maps got redistricted from the 27th Street Bridge up to 27th and Howard, and then like about 10 blocks east and west from that. So my district is primarily Latinx, Latine, Latino, Latina, and I think I'm running because I think it's very important that this district is represented by somebody that is also Latino and want to really voice the collective concerns of the district, because we need this kind of representation from somebody that knows what the district needs. And as being a member of the working class and being a renter, not a career politician that just sort of wants to make his name further for whatever reason, or further his agenda for whatever it is. I'm a working class person, and I come from a working class background, and this is what we need. And if I am elected, I will be the first ever Latino socialist to be elected to office in the history of Milwaukee.
That's pretty impressive. All right, so I understand you guys. You made it through the first round, right? You have basically a runoff system, and so you guys both are challenging incumbents. Is that right? Or is one of you in an open seat?
Mine is an open seat,
That's what I thought.
but he's kind of, I guess you can say he's an incumbent because he was in the state legislature for about 18 years. I'm not exactly sure, 18, 20 years, something like that. He was stripped of his committees, and then he's coming back now to try to get back in office. He was stripped of his committees back in 2018, I'm sure.
What was he stripped for? If you don't mind me asking.
That's he was accused of, and he was got inebriated and tried to kiss two separate women at one of his fundraisers. Yeah, he was trying to. So
he got Me Too'd and he's running again?
Yeah, he was Me Too'd and he's running again. Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry to I'll be the person to say it, chat, so these guys don't have to, but this politics in America, especially at the local level, and I'm sure you're all experiencing this, is extremely incestuous. And there's an almost aggravation with anybody who tries to get involved in politics, but not through the machine. You know, if you're not running as somebody who knows someone and served as a staffer and is a sycophant to whatever the local interests are, especially the local rich people, then you're going to be treated like an interloper. And there's nothing you can do right and nothing that they can do wrong. You know, like that is going to be the way you're treated because it's material. And if you are a socialist, you understand this. You're a threat to their material interest. This is not about honesty, truth, fair play, or what's good for the people. It's about material power, and you represent a threat. So if you're going to challenge that, you have to marshal forces that are a legitimate threat. Expecting them to change their positions because of argument or what's right is never going to work. It's only when you've got the people power and those people are ready to struggle that you're going to win. And, you know, I've had those experiences myself, running, you know, city council races and winning, you know, in cities here in Pennsylvania, and, you know, our own socialist movement that's growing.
Yeah,
so what
Mike, if only you knew how true that was.
Well, yeah. Eric, I'm sorry for monologuing at you guys, but what are some of your experiences as a councilman, Ryan? Now, Ryan, if you don't know this, chat, you are a longtime socialist. You're not new to socialism. You're not part of the Bernie boom, right? You've been around the block for a while. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, I was hanging out in the mountains in the Philippines with like the New People's Army a long time ago. So I am new to Milwaukee DSA. That's only happened in the last couple of years, and it's been a phenomenal political home for me. I mean, the support that I've gotten from that organization has been really good. So I am relatively new to DSA brand socialism recently, but my roots go deeper than that. But no, you're very right. I mean, it's and both Eric and Juan Miguel are running against incumbents, and they're both seasoned politicians that have had a long time, many opportunities to make change and haven't. And over the course of many years, they've both been really passionate defenders of the status quo and of telling folks why things should not change, and even setting aside any horrible lapses of judgment personally. Juan Miguel and Eric really need and deserve the chance to make actual change.
Yeah, you know, yeah, of course. And that's really well said. And I know that I think I became aware of you when someone reminded me that you went to Iraq in February of 2003. Isn't that right? To try to prevent the war.
You did some digging. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so Chad, if you're not aware, there were some dedicated peace activists in America who tried their best, including putting their own asses on the line, went to Iraq and said, "Not in our name, this war is wrong." And while many people were caught up in the war fervor that was being spread by the mainstream media, the constant drums beats of why we needed to invade this sovereign country, there were a few people that had the courage not only to speak up, but to actually go and do it. And so, Ryan, you know, that is incredible. And I just wanted to thank you for doing that. And I'm glad to see that you're still in the struggle. And, you know, I'm sure people have bashed you like crazy for having the courage to do something like that. But I just wanted to personally reach out and say thanks.
Thank you, Mike. No, I really appreciate that. I mean, fun story. I was actually prosecuted by the federal government, by the Bush regime, for literally just for being there. They treated me similar or worse than they would have an arms dealer, far worse than they would have an American company who sold arms to any of those folks. But yeah, no, it was a long thing, and I got my first death threats in 2003 as a relatively young person, and continue to get them now in office while I'm trying to move funds away from. From over policing here at the local level.
Well, yeah. So let me just ask you guys a little bit about the history of the city, because, you know, it's famous for going a different direction. You know, a lot of people don't know this because they're not taught about it in school, but that there was a robust socialist movement and its headquarters were basically right there in Milwaukee. And it was a threat to the two, you know, political parties that continue to dominate our politics for no purpose other than protect the status quo. And so, for example, like you guys mentioned the park system, I think you had the largest park system in the country in Milwaukee because of the efforts of socialists. And so is there like a political knowledge that stretches back? Is that like strain still alive, or are you guys trying to revive it? And any of you can
That's
speak.
a really good question. I mean, yeah, it is not. People spend their waking hours driving on bridges named after socialists and being in parks named after socialists. Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of decades here in Milwaukee County, we've lost half of the staff and at least half of the budget that went to our parks. And they're crumbling from the inside. I know that that's what Eric and Juan Miguel are trying to push for. It's those really unsexy, like, infrastructure investments. Milwaukee's sewer socialists were called sewer socialists because it was a derogatory term. Like, oh, why would people want to invest in infrastructure? But we know that works. We know that makes our communities better places to live and ultimately makes them safer in a way that over-policing things do not.
I could speak to that a little bit. I feel like it's not really like that. I really hope that we are reviving it here. The thing is that here on my side of town, I really hope to awaken what I call like Latino socialism or, barrio radicalism. The thing is that like a lot of like the people that don't speak English in this district don't really like know fully like the separate types of like political parties and what they do, because really a lot of times the undocumented population just wants to work and sort of keep their head down and are sort of afraid of like reprisal and everything for like speaking out. So it's very important for me that because I have organized undocumented workers in the past, and it's very important for me to make them know that they are still allowed to organize while undocumented because they are still part of this country. They are still paying taxes, and their kids still go to MPS. Awakening a certain type of socialism under folks like these is very fertile ground for really pushing socialism in Milwaukee. It's something that you don't like really like tell them, because like even if you do use the word like socialismo or something like that with them, or radicalismo, they'll just be like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't want to like really like talk about it that much, or like I don't really care. But once you explain exactly what it does is when you really start to get people behind the movement.
Yeah, and that's why I've always been kind of an advocate for show don't tell, because if people want, you can go around and talk about all your dreams in the future, but if you are a local leader and you demonstrate the ability to show some change, you can deliver for people right in their own lives materially, then they're going to be, they're going to be empowered by that. Victory begets victory, and that kind of the attitude that I've always had. And it's funny because cities that I've organized in have a very similar. It's funny how similar Milwaukee is to where I am in Pennsylvania, because we have a population, a large growing population of Latinx people, and that is like the backbone of the growth, that has overcome the post-industrial rot. And so integrating those communities into our struggle, we have there, DSA has that reputation for being like, white college educated guys, and integrating that in those communities that need the organization and have so much power if they just knew how to use it. Is so inspiring. One of the groups that I'm not sure, do you guys have is Make the Road what is the name of the organizations that you're organizing with, from that perspective, Juan? Like, do you have Make the Road, or is there other organizations that are more radical in favor of immigrants in the city?
Yeah, I really, really, really have to pump up Voces de la Frontera for sure. Voces de la Frontera has been doing a lot here for many, many years. I'm pretty sure, I think it's either 95 or earlier, but Christine Newman Ortiz is the person that kind of leads Voces de la Frontera, and that's a immigrant organization. And basically they stage actions, they do marches on like Joe Biden, like to hold him accountable, to deliver on his immigration promises and things like that. They really do work that nobody else in Milwaukee does, and they have chapters all over southeastern Wisconsin and up in Green Bay, I think, as well. But I work with this organization. They did endorse me for the candidate. They did endorse my candidacy, and I do work with everybody in this organization to properly bring forth this message. Their message is, immigrants deserve dignity and respect as well, and they really do push for like driver's licenses for all. They push for the identification cards for people to have, for undocumented folks to be able to have. And it's very important to work with that, because I would love to see undocumented folks be able to vote, because they are still a part of this country. And, that's something I hope to collaborate with Voces in the future and put my efforts forward as much as I can. So yeah, that's the group I work with mostly for immigrant rights.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. And so Eric, you mentioned like lakefront, where you have like these very rough, harshly unequal kind of like income distribution in the city, and people having these properties. Do you have a vision? Do you guys have like a vision for what development or what the city's services would look like if you had more control? Like, what would you do as an alternative to the neoliberal regime of TIFs and special tax giveaways and developing for gentrification? What would you guys do as an alternative?
Yeah, well, something that I've definitely noticed as I'm digging into various areas is this attitude of death by 1,000 public-private partnerships has certainly been has been a very domineering theme. And let me give you some specifics. Well, I would say probably one of the most iconic spots for young people in this entire district would be Bradford Beach. That's like a sandy beach. It's a county park. There's bars. There's they have a private vendor actually that's selling food and selling drinks. And there was a movement to expand the footprint of this private vendor, private vendors are there to make a profit. That is fundamentally the purpose. And there was great concern about privatization, and my opponent put out the most condescending press release I have ever heard in my life, calling backlash to privatization disinformation. It was really, really something.
Wow.
But the attitude is not just right, exactly. And this attitude is not just pervasive to parks, it's pervasive to transit, it's pervasive to county services. And privatization poses a real threat. Ideologically, I think that that's the number one thing that I would love for this movement to really get across to folks, is that we are in a moment of budget crisis as a county, and there's a few reasons for that. You know, gerrymandering has created a super far right state legislature that's made it incredibly difficult for Milwaukee County to get its fair share of funds. But that doesn't mean that cutting services and privatizing things is a solution. In fact, that makes the long-term problem worse. That brings in less money to the county. That makes these systems less self-sustaining. And ultimately, I mean, we live in a world where public banking is a thing that's a little bit seen as a fantasy, but public schools and public buses and public parks, you know, that seems very big. The really scary reality to me is that it's not a crazy leap for me to see a world where bus routes continue to get cut for various reasons. We have private, you know, via and Uber and Lyft and all these private substitutions. It's not crazy for me to see a world where our bus system is entirely privatized. It's not crazy for me to see a world. In fact, I hear it sometimes from supposed like Democratic, strategists and such, talking about trying to solicit philanthropic support for our parks as if that's a sustainable model at all. And as if that doesn't completely hand over the keys to our public assets to the 1%, which it just completely exclusively does. All of these things, I think, come back into a couple very central questions, which is the role of a budget. What is a budget, right? And the budget, of course, is a document that says what our values are, who we believe that we need to invest in. And this is one of the most insidious parts of neoliberalism, this ideological obsession with law enforcement and guns and violence as the only means of maintaining any level of quality of life. It's sick. It results in horrible over-policing. It results in incredible trauma, horrendous waste. It creates situations where people are being beaten and tear gassed on the freeway under the pretext of, oh, well, it's unsafe to protest on the freeway. Well, it's pretty freaking unsafe to take a, metal bar to somebody's head too. And so what's the end result of that system, right? We're shoveling half of our budget into a department that's completely unaccountable, that's systemically wasting our money, that's completely non-responsive to questions of why are you going into overtime all the time, wasting millions of dollars. There's no accountability at all. And we have wasted so much of our money in order to have people getting beaten. And the sick reality here is that gun violence is up anyway, and vehicle thefts are a huge issue around here, probably because poverty is a huge issue around here. And did all that spending bring down crime after all this? No, it didn't. In fact, it's worse now. And to your point about how the socialist movement here has ebbed and flowed, we're at a point where we have, two major mayoral candidates. This is a race separate from ours on the municipal side, but both are kind of out copying each other. In fact, I've seen this really disgusting line from our Democratic mayoral candidate that he's trying to accuse the Republican of having defunded the police because he didn't support a specific budget. I mean, it's sick. This obsession with law enforcement as the means of fixing everything is really the biggest source of the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, I this doesn't surprise me because the backlash from Black Lives Matter is an expected part of our politics. And one of the things that I'm always curious about is I've always experienced a large percentage of the police department. I know this is true in Milwaukee. I think it's something like 30-40% of your white officers don't live in the city that they police. And so you have this kind of occupier mentality for the police department. And you're right. I don't know this, and this may be this is a question that you guys may or may not know, but I know that a lot of state and local budgets got a huge injection from COVID relief. And in LA, as an example, the majority of that COVID relief funding went to the police department, went to the LAPD. There's no, the most overfunded department of American cities is always the police department. I mean, this is just like, everybody knows this. This is baby talk. And I think there's a lack of seriousness in the public policy discussions of the Democratic Party. And how do you differentiate yourself? And has that been a problem, like running for the nomination of a party that is chaired by Joseph Biden, and the total inability of the Democratic Party to do anything at the federal level? Have you found that, causing difficulty for you when you're trying to organize?
We are fortunate in Milwaukee County that we're actually running for nonpartisan seats.
That's right.
We can actually make strategic, maneuvers in running on the Democratic ticket or not. But we don't have to at Milwaukee County. And although we have a technically nonpartisan board, we definitely have partisan folks on there.
Of course.
I've seen my own efforts severely undercut by feckless moderates or conservatives, regardless of the letter that they have after their name. But it is a really tough time in 2022 to be saying that you want to follow the data and to move money away from law enforcement and to things which the data says actually make us safer. We have something called the Credible Messenger Program here in Milwaukee. When a young person specifically is at risk, we will pair them up with a mentor who has been there before, somebody that they can actually identify with. And the initial data on that is astounding. Those kids tend not to reoffend. They tend to stay out of trouble. And yet right now, as of 2 days ago, we have over 50 young people waiting to get into this program because we have not funded it. I had a budget amendment that would have taken a few dollars away from the sheriff's department, put that toward the Credible Messenger Program, and it's only got a handful of votes. And that is why we need folks like Eric and Juan Miguel on the board, because they will do what the data says, what the people demand, and actually move money to make our community better.
Yeah, I know. So one of the things about the defund the police, because the Democratic Party at the national level has spent so much time trying to be saying, oh, actually, we love the police even more than the Republicans do. And so, the people who said defund the police cost us elections. It doesn't matter that there's no evidence for this. It doesn't. It's the purpose is to just kind of constrain you and put you guys on the back foot. But have you been drawing on programs like Cahoots in Eugene or Star in Denver as like actually existing alternatives to the over-policing model, and that have seen success, as kind of like as something that you guys are pushing? Or is that an idea that you guys okay?
Yeah, I literally talked to the folks, the STAR team out in Denver, and this was probably a year and a half ago, so shortly after I was elected the first time, and I had a conversation. It was like, so, be real with me, like what percentage of the times when it's, and this is an EMT and somebody with a mental health background being dispatched to not bank robberies, as the conservatives, moderates have us believe, but being sent to appropriate things. So somebody who's experiencing homelessness or a mental health crisis,
right?
Those things. What percentage of those times do you actually wish you had somebody in law enforcement along with you? They said literally zero, never. That would only make situations worse. Why, no, we often are at, scenes where law enforcement is present. They got there at the same time. And that is not a helpful thing. So whether it's Cahoots, whether it's the STAR program, we have a ton of data to show very clearly that these things work. And yet in Milwaukee County, we just put together a hybrid program. It's called CART, which rather than sending out an EMT and somebody with a mental health background, we send out somebody with a mental health background and a sworn officer. It's not quite there. It's far worse results than the STAR Cahoots program. Mm-hmm. But we paid for that with mental health dollars. So we took money, not from the police, from the sheriff's budget. We took that from mental health services and used that to fund cops. And that is totally backwards, right? It is often the devil's in the details, and this detail we got absolutely wrong. I was very opposed to it, and again, did not get enough support for to turn that one around.
So what is like the big issue that is motivating, the board, the race, like from the local media? What is the thing that is there any local issue that's like superseding national or politics that you guys are trying to address? Or is it, you know, kind of subsumed to this like national political conversation on, you know, defund the police or what, or etc.?
Can I speak to this piece? Oh, wait, why
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was going to say one of the things, actually, this is a really cool question, because what I really appreciate about, you know, running an insurgent DSA campaign is that we, because you know, we're not people who take money from the 1%, you know, our power comes from people power. Our power comes from the people who will come out and knock doors and change hearts and minds and give small dollars to us. It's given us the freedom, I would say, to craft a platform that's really based on our own experiences in the community, right? And whereas the national political conversation was really swallowed at the moment that we were all, you know, trying to get on the ballot by like COVID drama and Trump drama and all of that, we were able to come out swinging on the issues that really, really matter to folks around here, like public safety. Vehicle thefts are a thing that people are very, very frustrated about. The park system, I mean, I know that sounds like a little bit of a less pressing thing, but the park system is so important for so many reasons. I mean, really think about this era of corporate capture of our democracy, when pretty much every place you have to be in public, you have to be spending money in order to not be harassed by a police officer, really. This is a moment where it's more important than ever, right, to be having as many green spaces as we can in order to have as many free places where people can come together and connect. And also parks are such a proxy for the way that people are or are not being represented. I mean, everybody wants to have those spaces in their community where they can come together. And the fact that that very basic, very popular priority just cannot and will not be touched by existing politicians, I think is really, really striking a real nerve. This is also part of why I think that our public safety message has been so salient. And in fact, I actually moved my public safety pitch to the top of all my campaign literature. I come out swinging with that first because our message is it's been tremendously successful and resonated with folks very well at doors. And I think this is part of why there was some backlash to defund the police in the first place, was there just wasn't an infrastructure to be going door to door and having these conversations with folks about their legitimate concerns about public safety and about what's going to fix that. Because I have that discussion with folks and they tell me about things that they're afraid about, that they're afraid their vehicle is going to get stolen, that they're afraid of, you know, being chased in an alleyway or something, and all these very legitimate concerns. And I say that I hear that and I really want to respond to that. And the way to respond to that is not by having a really massive, disproportionately white, disproportionately male, disproportionately Republican group of folks with firearms. To respond after the fact. Maybe that's not the best way to actually address the core causes of what's going on here, right? And as socialists, we all acknowledge here that the core causes of these issues are capitalism, it's wealth inequality. It's wealth inequality predicated on the fact that there is a class of folks that are robbing us nickel and dime, right? Whether we're, you know, immigrants on the South Side, whether we're families in Bayview, or whether we're students, you know, living around the UW Milwaukee, not terribly far from the lake. So that's something that I would certainly say has been a reason that DSA is so important, is that because our power is derived from people power, we're not dominated by what the media discussion is. We can come out swinging with a hyper local, with a hyper specific, with a very tactile agenda. And you were talking earlier about issues. I mean, that's really been the key to the coalition that we've been able to build. I mean, we're not just DSA folks. We've all been endorsed by so many people: Citizen Action of Wisconsin, Working Families Party of Wisconsin, MTEA, right, the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association. The reason that we're able to build that coalition is we talk about things that people care about, and we do have a vision and we have goals. And that's something that the establishment really lacks, because to your point, a lot of those folks are not motivated by the issues. A lot of those folks don't take their concerns from what working people at doors are saying to them. They're looking out for their own career or for their buddies, and that's not democracy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you know, you guys are in kind of like ground zero of the rumpification of the Democratic Party. You know, Wisconsin is a swing state, right? It is a split down the middle. Joe Biden won the state, but yet at your state level, and especially at the legislature, Republicans have like almost a super majority. And they're not winning votes, they're winning districts.
Right.
How has that changed politics in your state? And what is, like, do you guys have a strategy for dealing with that? Or, you know, is that something that needs help from the federal level? Are you feeling, black-pilled, so to speak, about defeating, because the more you guys try to do at the state level, quite frankly, or the city level, the county level, you're going to get preempted. They're going to come in and try to take away your powers. So what is your strategy, if any, to dealing with that? And do you need help, from the federal level with, rules against gerrymandering or voter suppression or some of the tactics that the Republicans are doing towards progressive change?
It's a really good question, and especially in Wisconsin, where most good broad things that we try to do are preempted by the state. So whether it's raising the minimum wage, whether it's protections for LGBTQ plus folks in terms of employment, whether it's paid time off, we cannot either at the city or county levels ask folks or require folks to do that, because every time that's happened, the state has come in and not only stopped it for Milwaukee or for Madison, which are also relatively left-leaning enclave and urban center, but they restrict it for every other municipality across the state. So yeah, I mean, the state legislature is so conservative that the party that claims to be in favor of local control strips that away whenever we get close to doing anything.
Yeah, that's an outright lie. I mean,
no,
you have to
it's
be
crap.
stupid to believe the Republicans even a little bit on anything. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. But it is a really good question. I mean, there's no, they're only in favor of local control if it means
the capitalist control.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. No, yeah, and in fact, Eric's opponent here, who is not a Democrat, but is not a self-identifying conservative, but is a Democrat, yesterday in committee said that his solution to poverty, rather than providing affordable housing, was to give gas stations to people, which was surprising to me. I
1,000 gas stations will bloom.
Yeah, like Oprah style, right? Like, you get a gas station. It was something that I didn't expect, but clearly his opponent has not thought through the conditions that you actually need for economic recovery, right?
Yeah.
He thought that somebody could start with a business if they can't afford rent, they can't afford food, if they don't have basic medical care. It really speaks to the disconnect between both feckless moderates and conservatives and the rest of us who are really trying to look at this upstream in a better way, frankly.
Seriously. Yeah. Can I go on a mini rant?
Oh, please do. I always do that. So please do someone else.
Well, this is going to come full circle because this is a pitch here for why DSA and why movement-based politics are so important. Because what you're getting a sense of right now is the way that each local jurisdiction has its own jurisdiction, and that the state has such an integral relationship with that. A really good example is the state legislature preempted the minimum wage, for example, which is why the minimum wage is $7.
So how much did you guys raise it to, or try to?
Oh, well, the minimum wage has been $7.25 at the state level, and there's just no even hope.
So did you guys have like a local minimum wage that you tried to push, Ryan, or?
Yeah, no, this was actually before my time. So
Okay.
It would have scaled up. I think this was a decade ago. We would have jumped to a staggering 11 and then gone up from there. It still would have left the sub-minimum wage, which is $2.33 an hour for shift workers alone. But the most recent one was just a few years ago. We tried to add, I think, 8 or 10 days of paid time off per year, so that people don't come to work when they're sick. As it turns out, that would have been a really good thing during the pandemic.
Right.
But they definitely don't want that because it would get in the way of capitalism.
Well,
and I don't want to talk over you, Eric.
Well, just here's the story: is that gerrymandering is a very, very huge part of the story. And so the For the People Act, not the Freedom to Vote Act, as Joe Manchin hammered it down to, would have been really, really valuable. And here's an example of how Democratic BS at the national level really screws us here, because there's this excuse that's baked into the Senate now, which is, well, it's 50-50 Senate, like, gosh darn, we can't do anything, which is completely ignorant to the fact that the DSCC, the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, went all in states like Iowa and Maine and not specifically Florida, Ohio. I think they're targeting this one. They support these terrible corporate-backed candidates with these terrible politics that can't possibly win in states like Ohio or Iowa or Maine. right? And so the party incentivizes, throws cash at these candidates that then go on to lose and then sits on their hands like they're the ones who are completely powerless here. And that trickles down to the fact that we don't have meaningful voting rights legislation in the year 2022 when Republicans are ratcheting up this attack on voters. And that trickles down back here because now we've gotten this like mini win from our state Supreme Court that like gave us the least bad maps in a series.
I know your maps are fucking terrible. Like it was so funny to me because like I was looking at it and I was like, why are people Democrats voted for a map that gerrymanders them? This is insane. Like,
right.
like they're like, yes, they got a better map than the absolutely terrible map. No, the map that you got is hopeless. I have no idea what people are talking. This is one of the things that kind of blows my mind as somebody who ran for state legislature on a gerrymandered map. Fresh gerrymandered map and back in 2014. That's when our newest maps went into place, and they took away my Latino population in my city, part of my district, and gave me some more exurban white areas. And like, you know, it doesn't matter what you do, because if they just jam every Democrat in one district and then gerrymander 3 suburban exurban districts around you, there's no organizing that can be done. You're going to be going to the people that are in the NRA and who are, you know, transphobic, homophobic, you know, xenophobic. They're not organizable. They're enemy political organizations that are dominating your politics, even though numerically through the votes they're a small minority.
Right. And so the point here is that we pretty much don't have democratic control over our state legislature is the example. And big money on both sides of the aisle then has paved the way for that to be the reality. And so no matter how much allegiance you may pledge to one party, and no matter how many speeches one party might give about caring about ending gerrymandering, the reality is that the big money network paved the way for this exact situation. So that's part of why, I mean, focusing on county and local government is so important, because these are some of the only places that we do have the tools to do harm reduction on the ground right here, right now, right? So,
So do you guys draw inspiration from, like, you know, when Bernie Sanders was his model, when he became mayor of Burlington, he built a lasting legacy. It wasn't just a personality called around him. He went to build local organizations. He had a plan for development on the lakefront, which is Lake Champlain there in, I don't know how much you guys know about Burlington, but and he threw out this like gentrification model, and he built a co-op model. He built a tenant-owned housing, you know, and built community groups, you know, forward. You know, I think Burlington has the highest percentage of its population housed in co-op housing of any city, and its employers are the biggest employers are all co-op style enterprises. Do you see that as like a model? You know, you have cities like Vienna, you know, where they have a robust public housing, because I'm sure, like everywhere else in the country, housing is a major concern for your constituents. So are you looking for, you know, projects like that, building public housing, social housing as an alternative to, you know, the gentrification model that is rampant everywhere in America?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Juan.
Oh, no, yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, especially here on the south side of Milwaukee, the gentrification model has really had a lot of success in the fact that Walker's Point has now become like a very expensive enclave in the city for people that, and it was historically a workers district where folks had cheap, affordable housing. It was rooming houses for immigrants. It was many different kinds of things. So it's really important to like really push the fact that when one of these like buildings goes up, that there is the affordable housing units in those buildings, because it's very important that everybody's able to access the same quality of life with being able to with approaching these business models.
So what kind of policies are you guys looking for? Sorry to get down in the weeds, but are you looking for like what there's called workforce housing? Are you talking about you know, percentage set aside in any development of quote affordable housing? this is the type of stuff that actually matters that almost nobody knows, which is like, what is the affordable housing? Is it set at median wage? Is it 60% median wage? Is it 30% of the building, 10% of the building? Is it for 10 years? Is there a TIF? Like, what's the, and this is how people become rich in our country, is they know how to work politicians to get these sweetheart deals, and the people that suffer are the taxpayers and the constituents who don't know any better. So how have you guys survived, in the face of that kind of stuff? And what is your strategy? What is your plan towards achieving change in housing?
Yeah, no, exactly. And whether it's housing or anything else, I mean, it's you're right. It's not about individuals. It's about, policy. And one of the things I love about Eric and Juan Miguel is that when we hang out, we don't target individuals. Like, we're all policy geeks. I really, really love like going out for a beer, because this is Milwaukee, and then talking policy with these two for hours. And I'm not popular in Milwaukee because of me. Like, I'm a pretty unpleasant person to be around. I'm only popular because of my policies, right? So I was able, over the course of more than a year, to pass the right to counsel. I mean, if you're facing eviction in Milwaukee County will provide you a lawyer. But everybody else loves this policy too. So we had mayoral candidates, we had the mayor, we had other people in leadership, even at the federal level, showing up and saying what a great thing it is. And they generally wouldn't let me speak to it, because when I spoke to it, I would say, yeah, that's fine. But I'd also label it as harm reduction, right? The real harm here coming from, needing a sea change in terms of housing, and then in terms of reforming capitalism too. So I don't often get invited to the parties, even when it's your idea, out of policy that I made, right?
Well, that's really interesting you say that, because I that's kind of how I've built my community, and why they're all going to donate money to the Slate, which is, the link is in the chat right now. But yeah, see, focusing on policy is, that's the only thing that matters in the long term, right? Like, if you just care about the first person to get elected to office, if they don't leave a legacy of policy, then it doesn't matter. And so I'm glad to see that you guys are so focused on transforming the city through direct, tangible results. That's why I talk about sewer socialism, and it's not because I don't believe in revolution. Of course I do. But if we're going to be engaged in electoral politics, then what we have to do is show people that we can actually deliver, that it's not just waxing poetically about an imagined future. It's about delivering real material results. And when you do that, people will vote for you. Your socialist mayor was mayor for like 25 years because he delivered results, and people may not have agreed with him on everything, but when it came to housing, parks, sewers, they got it. And people make fun of sewer socialism because it's like, we kind of forget the public health disasters that existed in cities like yours. We're starting to relive them, right? Like water systems in Flint, they have to be maintained, they have to be invested in. I'm not sure if you guys, have the same situation with your systems. I'm sure you do, being way too expensive, especially with like suburban sprawl. So what are you guys doing to like make that tangible toward like the voter? When you get on the doors, Eric, and people are talking about why do you run? How do you talk about municipal issues? Do you get into things like the water system? And is your sky? This is a question I don't know. I'm curious. Is your water system owned by the county, the city, or is it privatized?
Oh God, the water system. Well, actually, can I throw it to Ryan to talk about We Energies for a second? Because that's an interesting utilities kick right there. And the story of utilities here is a little bit fascinating also, as far as it relates to me. We have a private monopoly controlling our electricity. Water is through the city, and we do have an issue with lead pipes. And to
are they trying to sell it? Are they trying to sell your water system? I'm surprised I'm surprised your mayors haven't floated that idea as a way of injecting cash. Look for that coming in the next 10 to 15 years.
and I mean, really, that's the number one fear. But I mean, to answer this question, the number one thing, at least at doors, the way that I always do it is the first thing that I ask a voter is what issues they care about. I mean, if they cared enough to open the door for this candidate, the first thing I want to do is listen. I think that is so important for the left movement in general. And folks are very candid with me usually, partially because, you know, we're not canvassing in areas where people are millionaires or billionaires. We're canvassing for a lot of renters, a lot of working families, a lot of students. And I get the same answers over and over and over again. I get climate crisis. I get people are afraid that their cars are going to get stolen. They're afraid that their park system is going to completely disappear. I hear a lot of frustrations that the bus system is increasingly unreliable, and that is because of underfunding. And I hear one of the most common things I hear is I'm paying more and more and more to live in this place. My landlord has so much power over me, and I don't even know what to do. And it's really sick. But that way of putting forth the question and hearing on the ground what folks are caring about is really what has informed this entire campaign. I mean, that is exactly why it's so crazy to me that socialists, you know, are perceived as radical or out of touch or off base, because everything that we're talking about is stuff that's directly come from voters, directly come from working class people. Every point that I have really ever made, everything that goes into all of my campaign materials comes from my lived experiences and lived experiences of folks in my neighborhood and of folks in my community, right? And so that's how we get into those conversations of talking about housing. That's how those conversations with Ryan and Juan come up about what are we going to do about housing. And I love that you asked that question, because actually I am running against a millionaire landlord. This man owns over 20 rental properties in the district, right? These are people, I mean, this is a severe conflict of interest. If you really think about it, these are people who are going to be both paying their paychecks to this man who owns their property and also making decisions on their behalf. And he's
probably going to be against rent control, I would say.
Oh yeah. Well, and that is where a socialist class oriented politics becomes very powerful, because this is a diversity and people have a lot of diverse experiences and backgrounds, but getting to those common experiences of I'm afraid about what's happening to our planet, I'm afraid of what's happening to our shoreline, and I can't afford to live here anymore, and we really sure as hell should not have a millionaire surgeon who's a landlord on the side because he didn't think that he had enough money otherwise. Those are the conversations that are really changing hearts and minds. And that kind of politics is so salient, where you are going to folks and telling them that you are fighting directly for them and that you're not a career politician. I mean, that is such a breath of fresh freaking air for people, especially in this city that I think has been really co-opted by the right-wing politics of privatization and neoliberalism and identity politics. It has been a huge breath of fresh air, I think. And I'm really excited to serve alongside Ryan and Juan for that exact reason, because we're going to bring a level of passion that I don't think has necessarily been there. And that's because all of our priorities come exactly from the people. And for me in specific, it's climate. I'm very terrified about our air quality. I'm very terrified about our shoreline and our park system. And I'm very excited for the work that we can do on the ground to be protecting, expanding, repairing green spaces, right? Creating union jobs while we do it, living that Green New Deal mindset right here and laying the foundation for what that can be nationwide.
Yeah, I think that's a really inspiring message. Is there, I don't know how much time you guys have. I think we're coming in on an hour. I don't know if you guys wanted to get back to the trail or you got work to do. I'm happy to keep talking about politics all day.
I can hang out here and talk policy for at least another hour. So yeah,
all right. Well, why don't we? What about you, Juan?
I actually, there's a Josh Zepnick yard sign on my block. So that is making me very upset. So I really need to go get back on doors.
Well, that's exactly the type of thing that I like to hear. And that's why, I am going to give you guys a donation. And I hope that, chat, here's this. I'll give you guys each $100 right now. And then when you so 300 for the slate, but when you knock another 500 doors each, I'll give you another 300. Just message me with a packet or something like that, just to give you a little bit more motivation. That's a
Yeah,
lot of doors, Chad. That should be like 10 packets. So
That's only going to take Juan Miguel like a couple, maybe a week, honestly.
Yeah.
well, then that would be another good 300 well spent, you know?
All right,
just
perfect.
because I want to see you guys out there, and I want you to have the lit to drop off, you know, with people. So, or whatever else you're spending it on.
Mailers.
Mailers, yeah, hell yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess I could ask you about that, just campaign stuff. As somebody who has done campaign staff from a progressive side, I know that getting funds is always the toughest thing. You know, people think of small dollar donors and they think of AOC. Well, AOC is the most famous person, you know, in Congress. She's gonna have a lot of money. It's the guys that are trying to do it at the local level that nobody knows about, you know,
Right.
that are gonna have a hard time raising money. And something as little as, you know, $100 can go a long way. And when you're representing working class people, that's very dear. You know, it's hard to get money in your campaign. So, you know, if anybody who's watching has some money to throw into the kitty for you guys, it would probably go quite a long way. And I know you guys are going to spend it on important stuff, not worthless billboards or something like that, right?
Yeah, I need to get mailers out. So yeah, for sure, it would really help a lot.
What are you guys planning to do as far as your paid comms or like what do you want to do with money that you do get? Do you have like some plans that you're still trying to fund? Besides mailers is
honestly,
obviously a good one.
Yeah, I'm actually doing transfers and giving most of my funds to these two because I am safe. I'm far safer than these two are. And I can attest to every single dollar that these two are using going towards really good things, right? They're trying to do mailers. They're trying to reach individual residents based on, you know, whether they're students or whether they're renters, and actually, you know, speaking about things. And then, yeah, more importantly, listening to what they want. Everything that goes out that I've seen also says, reach out to me. I want to, you know, be not a politician, but an organizer who happens to be elected, who wants to use my experience as an organizer, not as a politician, to make things better for you. So every single dollar is necessary. They're both running against very seasoned folks. They're both running against people that have far more material resources.
Right.
And that's where you come in.
Yeah, and I just want to say we mean it when we say we're small dollar donors. Fun fact, my opponent keeps blasting all over social media about like what his average donation is and how he says he's man of the people with the small dollar donors. The campaign finance reports are public. He's getting massive contributions, and his campaign manager and one other person are sending $1 contributions to break like multiple $1 contributions to vastly break down the average. It's the most like classic psychotic politician thing.
Oh, he's just a liar.
Anyone can check
that.
The sheer disdain for the voters.
Well, I'm going to raise your average donation. Don't worry.
I appreciate that, but we mean it though, is what I'm saying.
No, I think that actually wasn't that maneuver done by Hillary Clinton? Wasn't Hillary Clinton the person who came up with that maneuver? I want to say in 2016, she was like, donate $2, please, because her average donation was like $500 or something. So she started to push for like get some low dollar donors, please. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they're doing that. One question I'm curious about, how is your guys' reception in like local media? Is it like super hostile? I would assume, based on my experience, local media is basically a mouthpiece for whatever the local corporations are. You know, they take you know, press releases from the utility, the police department, and you know, rich people, and they kind of repeat that back, and you're treated as a nuisance and largely either ignored or bashed. So which are they doing to you? Ignoring you or bashing you?
Both, depending on the mood and the time, right? So, and I gotta say, we do have some really good local media, and they do really good in-depth coverage. In general, right? Even when I pass something that's wildly popular, I'll be kind of erased from it, right? They'll mention the policy, which everybody loves. They'll not mention kind of where it comes from, and oftentimes they just go in, right? So we had one local reporter. Every time I open my mouth or make a meme or something, he tries to bash me. and we had one local reporter saying Ryan Clancy, a so-called socialist, was raising money for his campaign. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not living in a cave or in a tree or something because
socialism means no fun.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I can't touch money, or it's like a vampire thing. They start on fire, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. You think capitalism bad, yet you participate in society? Curious.
I know, right? Exactly.
Yeah. You know, all these. It's funny because these are all shared experiences, and because one of the things that's really great about my community in the stream, and I encourage you all to hang out more, is that I have. This is common. Like nothing that you're experiencing is any different than how socialists are experiencing it in Philadelphia, Allentown, Pittsburgh, New York City. It's all the same shit. You get the same kind of maneuvers, and they're very, very easy to predict what they're gonna do. When is the election? How many more days do you guys have left?
15 days. It's April 5th.
So has your opponents been kind of blanketing the universe with mailers? Because you only have a couple more days before it's too late to get mailers out. You know, with how slow the mail goes.
Apparently, some people have already gotten 2 mailers for my opponent. I've only sent out 1 so far. Looking to get at least 4 more out before the end of the election cycle. So,
you better hopefully. Well, you know, it's you only have a couple more days to get those scheduled because, you know, even when I was doing mailers back in the day before the Joy, it was still slow. You know, you had a week in advance. Now I'm sure it's even worse. So yeah, well, hopefully I can help you fund a couple of those.
Thank you so much.
In like
Juan Miguel, we can't mention your opponent's mailers without talking about what was on them.
Oh yeah, please do. Do you have any?
I freaked out. No, I don't have it in front of me. Juan Miguel, you may have the picture of it. So at the county level, right, we don't do potholes, we don't do sidewalks, things like that. His opponent, literally the back of his lit was, I will fix your roads, I will fix your sidewalks, I will put in new streetlights. All of those things are either a bold lie, an intentional lie, and they show contempt for the voters, or he doesn't actually know what the
it's both.
Those things is frightening. So,
it's both. It's both. He doesn't know and he has contempt.
Right.
It's you know, depending on the fact that like a lot of people in the district don't really know what a county supervisor does. So my first wave of lit was very specific in what I will do and what I can do as a county supervisor and what I will do. So it's like, this is what I can do, you know, like I didn't want to blast him, but you know, like, yeah, this is he makes it very hard for me not to blast him, but like, you know, like it's I did put on there exactly what I can do. So I feel that that's a lot more, you know, like not insulting people's intelligence.
Yeah. You know, when I say one thing, Eric, which is just like the one of the things is like negative campaigning doesn't work on us. Like we're very policy oriented people. I can tell from talking to you, but it does work for people who are not as engaged in politics because they think that like if one side is attacking, well, that's what politicians do. So if one side's attacking and the other isn't, well, then there must be nothing wrong with that guy. Like you don't get the benefit of the doubt by trying to do a clean campaign. They just think you have nothing to say about the other guy. So at this point in my life, blast away, because they're going to make shit up about you. Like if they don't have anything, they'll make it up. And if it's small and you know, if you speed, you're a reckless driver. You know, if you've never got a parking ticket, well, you are, they'll just make you work for a nonprofit. Well, you're using nonprofits to profit for yourself. You know, they'll turn anything into an attack. So, you know, right. I think my personal advice is don't feel shy about bashing your opponent because you're not getting any credit for not doing that from the voters.
That's very true.
So Eric,
duly noted.
What do you think? How is your campaign going? Has it been focused on the issues, or what are they coming after you guys for?
Well, so I've been getting the silent treatment. So I'm the one who's getting ignored.
Sorry to interrupt real quick, but I do have to drop off.
Yeah,
right now.
Well, thanks for hanging out with me.
Of course.
And I'll let you guys. Why don't we just do closing statements? And if you have anything to say, any calls to action before you go, I will be Juan. So why don't you go ahead and do that, and then you can jump off. Like,
All
give me
right, thank
another
you. I
minute.
apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
I really get out here. It's so there's a canvas launches every Saturday at my house, which is 738 South 29th Street. And in Milwaukee, we do canvas launches at 11 a.m. You can come and get a turf. I will be having a fundraiser on March 27th, where we will be selling plates of carnitas, which is slow roasted pork, and it will come with salsas and tortillas, and it's a drive up. You can definitely come and get a good plate. My friend Valeria, her cousin does carnitas in Chicago, and he will be coming up to Milwaukee to do his special brand of carnitas, which will definitely benefit the campaign. Any plate you buy will go towards the campaign.
All right, sounds great.
All right, well, thank you very much. You have a good rest of your day, everybody.
All right, you too, Juan. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
All right, we'll see if we can fix this because there's going to be a slight adjustment. Okay, there we go.
Cool.
All right. Well, why don't you, Eric, why don't you give some statement, say what you were saying about being ignored, give your closing statement and any more calls of action. And if the mods could go ahead and spam your Slate link, that would be really great as well.
And thank you so much for doing that. I was just going to say, and this wraps up into a closing nicely. This question, I think, goes really nicely to where political power really comes from, and theories of change, and whether nicing everyone to death is what's going to create change, or directly challenging that power. And so I had a voter very early on when I was still gathering signatures to make the ballot, who said to me, "Thank you so much for running, because I got my first newsletter from my county supervisor today." Man who has been in office since 2016, this person had not received a single correspondence. Do we think that our beloved county supervisor was going to send out a newsletter if I called and was really nice and said, I really think that you should be a little more involved? Of course, that's not how it works, right? And so that right there, speaks to the benefit of running these kinds of campaigns right off the bat, is that by forcing these people to be responsive, you are creating a better and more responsive democracy, right? People say democracy is a verb, and this is what they mean. So with that said, I'm going up against a very entrenched incumbent. This is also a person who was a state legislator before this. This person is incredibly wealthy, and I'm sure he's a wonderful OBGYN, but the reality of the matter is that he has stood in the way of so much progress. And this district really does need to be represented by a voice of the working people who put so much on the line through the COVID crisis, right? Talking about baristas and custodians and bartenders and adjunct professors and folks that repair roads, and these are the kinds of people whose voices need to be uplifted, and those are the kinds of people who are not being listened to. And in this moment right now, where cost of living is rising, consolidation of Milwaukee County properties and properties all over the country are being bought up more and more by big money landlords and by hedge funds and by corporations. This is a moment where working people need to put their foot down and say, we need to have one of our own. I'm a wage worker. I am a renter. The most expensive thing I own is my 2004 Honda sitting out there on the street. Seriously. And this campaign is all rooted in that experience, right? And this campaign is rooted in what I know that we can do in Milwaukee County. If we have a vision, and if we're willing to challenge big money, and if we're willing to challenge the existing power structures, that we can build those coalitions, and we can work with folks on the board, even if they haven't always been on our side before. And we derive our power from organizations that give us lots to work with and that support us, like DSA. And that's really our theory of change. And Ryan has already, as a single man, been able to get so much stuff done on the board that I really believe would not have happened otherwise. And Ryan needs allies, because working people in Milwaukee County need allies, right? So I want to echo what Juan said. Our election day is April 5th. That is in just under 3 weeks. We're canvassing every Saturday and Sunday. If you happen to be around the Milwaukee area, we're doing 11 a.m. at Juan's house. He said 11 a.m. on Sunday. That is at my house on the east side on District 3. On Oakland Avenue up here. If you go to Milwaukee DSA, you can find the addresses and all the details for those events. It is so important to have people out there helping us have those conversations, because ultimately, my opponent can buy as many newspaper ads and blanket as many airwaves, or I don't know. I don't specifically even know what his plan is here. But the reality of the matter is that we're going to win this race by organizing working class people, and by having those very frank conversations, and by going to every house that has a Black Lives Matter sign and saying, let's put our money where our mouth is now, and let's elect a candidate who's going to move money around and seriously invest in the Black working class in this city in a way that has really not been done in a very, very, very long time. And those are the things that I'm really excited about, because when you start chipping away at some of those core institutional problems, you see the issues of income inequality start to disappear. And that's really what we need to do. We need to build a better, healthier, stronger, more financially resilient working class, because that is going to mean so much more freedom for people in Milwaukee County. It's going to be a better quality of life. It's going to be more businesses. It's going to mean more home ownership. And isn't that supposed to be the whole purpose of the capitalist system, right? And so this isn't about me. This isn't about, some vague ideological goals here. The goal here is to give working people in Milwaukee County a frickin' seat at the table, and to say the era of millionaires and landlords making decisions for us is over. And I've been really excited by the reception that we've got. And, every dollar that we get really helps us get that message across, because like Ryan said, we are specifically targeting students. We created campaign lists specifically for students. We have stuff specifically for renters. And I'm not going to divulge all of our strategies on here to keep cards a little close to my chest, but we're reaching out to folks in ways that I'm very confident has never been attempted in this part of town, right? And I am so excited for the new, very populist, very democratic kind of politics that is bringing to this race. And I'm super proud of the race that we have run so far. And I'm so thankful to have people like Ryan and Juan Miguel on that slate with us. I'm so excited to work with them on the board. So showing up for canvassing Saturdays and Sundays if you are able, and if not, making a donation, it seriously helps so much. And thank you so much for having the platform and for being willing to talk to us, Mike.
Yeah, no worries. I'm glad you guys came on. This is good for my mental health too, it's to see people in local areas running and putting these beliefs into praxis. One thing I would say is don't give up. If this race, it seems like it's going to be a tight one or a tough race against these big entrenched candidates. So, one of the worst things that could happen is to get embittered after one attempt at this. I'm sure Ryan has is a sage on this. Is keep it up, and you guys are really inspiring to all of us. And we're not just expecting an easy victory. We're going to be supporting you as you progress, through the years. So hopefully you can win this and deliver a change. So thank you so much for putting yourself out there and taking the risk. I know how difficult it is to put your name on the line and actually fight for something. So thank you so much for that. And I guess we'll close out with Ryan if there's any more calls to action. And thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all the organizing and hard work you've put in over the years.
No, thank you, Mike. And I really appreciate the platform. I don't know how much I could add to Eric's plea at the end there. And I see folks in the chat here saying that it's inspiring, and it really is, right? It is so wholesome to sit down with these folks and get really excited about policy, because it's not abstract, right? I see at my office every day how good policy helps people and how terrible policy really makes things difficult. We've privatized everything in Milwaukee County that we can. We literally have a prison system where we pay folks in our care $0.00 an hour. We banned visitation so we can wring money out of their families. Milwaukee County families are paying $5.1 million every year just to talk to their loved ones who we incarcerate. And we incarcerate more of because we can't seem to stop giving money to the sheriff's office and the police. So all of this is to say that we can unwind those things. We can do good things with good policy. And I know that Eric and Juan Miguel can do that. But they're doing it through selling roasted pigs. I think he really missed an opportunity to sell that for $13.12 per plate, but $15 is close enough. They don't have campaign buses. What they have is you. So please use that link in the chat. That link actually promises you a pint glass. I know that many of you are nowhere near Milwaukee County, and I'm thanking you for your donations now. If you are, when you come to Milwaukee, look me up. I'll be hopefully still here then. doing something, and I will give you that pint glass. We'll sit down and have a beer, and we'll talk policy for as long as you possibly want to. But thank you for your support. Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be back. You know, with a exciting group of socialists there. You know, politics always it's going to keep churning. So I'm sure we'll be back at some point, and maybe I'll go out there and we'll organize some sort of canvas or something. Unfortunately, we can't do it for this one, but maybe in the future, now that we have this relationship. So thank you guys so much for coming on, and thank you for giving me so much of your time. And I know you got a lot of work to do. So you guys are really impressive, and we're going to do our best to support you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yep, bye-bye. All right, chat. That was 3 proud DSA candidates from Milwaukee running for the county offices using the old sewer socialist technique. It's pretty inspiring. I know it's not the normal coverage we always have, and if you're not interested in local politics, you know, you're wrong, but it's okay. Thank you everybody for sticking it out, and I really would appreciate a support there.